What is up, Big Red Nation? Welcome to What Just Happened, where we're going to talk about the Minnesota game. So, what just happened? Um, Man, you know what? Before we get into that, there's a couple other Husker athletics that we should celebrate first. Of course, on Friday night, Nebraska women's volleyball swept Michigan State. They're just tremendous. So they're the one program that you can watch and be happy about week after week. Also though, on Saturday, then Nebraska men's basketball beat number 8 BYU. Man, wow. Now I didn't get to watch it. I don't have BTN Plus, so I didn't watch it, but I kept up with it on X on the feed, and that's a big win. I know it's just an exhibition, so I know it doesn't count. I don't even know necessarily enough about BYU basketball to know if all their like top stars were playing or if they sat people out or what they did. I have no clue. I know at least the uh, projected number 1 pick in this upcoming NBA draft, he played. He had a good game too, 30 points, something like that. But they were no match for the returning ranked mass. I mean, come on. What was he? Did he end up 7 of 8 from 3-point or 6 of 7 or something like that from the 3-point line? I mean, God, he went off. Now, what we can hope for is that this translates to the actual season. Because if they're good enough to pull off a win against somebody like BYU, that bodes pretty well for us playing in the Big Ten. So hopefully that'll be good. It'd be great to see men's basketball have the type of season that we all kind of want to see them have finally. And that's be a major player inside a conference, get to the NCAA tournament, and just get a win. Can we just get a NCAA tournament win for men's basketball? That'd be awesome. So wanted to get into those things first, say some good things. Let's get out of the way. Now, let's get into a little bit of ranting and raving about what happened in that Minnesota game Friday night. Nebraska lost 24-6. And even though it was really close for a long time of the game, it just, I don't know, it never felt like we were in this game. But because of how they've, come back in a lot of the games previously, even though like they didn't win against Michigan, but they kept fighting. We had that lull at Michigan State, we had the lull at Maryland, and we kept coming back and fighting. And then each one of those games had those moments where like one play happened and then just the switch flipped, and clearly like we just got momentum and boom, we looked really good again. So for most of the game, I kept that thought in my head, like, okay, when's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? When are they going to make that one play? It's going to click, and here we go. And it just never did. I think I finally went, okay, no, we're losing. As whenever they went up a couple points or a couple possessions, and then it was just like I'm looking at the time, I'm like, no, it's definitely not happening. So, I just kind of want to go over a couple things here. There's so many different ways we can go and talk about this game. And, I just want everybody kind of keep in mind the things that I will talk about, the things I'm going to bring up. Like, it's just going to kind of pertain to this specific game. I'm not yet going to let this game determine what I think about this program as a whole, as this team as a whole for this season. Because one thing, you can look around college football, right? I always bring that up every week, whether we win or we lose, whether we play close, however it's been. I always bring this up in these review episodes because I think it's important to look around college football and have some perspective on everything. Because we can't just, you can't watch us win one game and go, oh, we could go undefeated, look at everything. And then literally just because we came out and had an absolute stinker in a game, now think that we're never going to win a game the rest of the year and screw it. You know what? We literally 2 days ago were hoping and praying that Matt Rule does not leave to go to Penn State, to by the end of that game going, I hope we fire Matt Rule. You can't, that's too extreme one way or the other. Way too extreme. Can't do that. That's one game. Now, one very, very bad game, and we're going to get into it. Trust me. Okay. I was very, very pissed throughout that game. But the one thing I won't do, because you see this a lot, is I'm not going to question this team's heart. I'm not going to question this team's effort. Okay. Because one, in previous games, they have shown they have that. They have shown that they have that. And I'm going to look at the prior 5 games where they show that they have this stuff and not all of a sudden let one game where it might look a little questionable and then start saying, they don't have it. They don't have the heart. They don't have the effort. They didn't show up. Because there's so many other factors. There just is. Okay. I have no doubt that throughout the week and in that game, this team thought they were putting their best effort into preparation, into getting things ready for the game. And then in the game, they were thinking that they're putting their best effort out there. Sometimes your best effort is not actually your best effort. You think it is. As you're going through, you think it is. You're like, man, what in the world? Like, I'm trying to go as hard as I can, but it's just, you can feel like you're a step back. You're a step behind. You're a step slower. Things aren't computing. Okay. And all those outside factors that go into that could be the travel, wears on your body a little bit, the short week, so you don't have that full ability. I think unfortunately we still have, I talked about all these like dragons and these hurdles that we can kind of clear as a program. But we've done a few this year now. The next one was going to be finally beating Minnesota, doing back-to-back road wins, all these things, right? All these like mental things too with the uniforms and blah, 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 blah. But I think one of the bigger ones that this game proved is the mentality hurdle of maybe feeling yourself a little too much. Now, whether the team or the coaches want to admit it or anything else, I don't necessarily think like the Penn State, like Matt Rule possibly leaving was a distraction. I don't think that like at its core was necessarily a distraction for this team. Maybe a little bit, maybe, they maybe a couple players maybe started thinking too much about it. Maybe. I'm not saying it definitely wasn't. I just don't think it was a full-blown team distraction, and that's why they played like this. But Coach Rule's mentality, both in that press conference and even a little bit on McAfee, was very much more ego bravado of, hey, this is what happens whenever you're really good. And then all this stuff kept saying of like, well, we're really good. I'm a really good coach. We're really, really good. We're good. We're good. We're good. You're hearing this from the head man all the time instead of he should have probably. Now, of course, this is hindsight, right? This is armchair quarterbacking. Instead of just talking about how great we were, and that's why I'm up for this job, and that's why these guys are probably getting phone calls from other teams, he should have gone back to the standard conversation. He should have kept it and going, hey, look, instead of saying this is what happens whenever you're really good, you start talking about, hey, look, we have a standard here at Nebraska with this program that I'm putting in place, that the players are putting in place, that everybody holds themselves accountable to. And it's that type of standard that is attractive to other places whenever they're in need to find that certain standard. So what we're going to do is I'm not going to talk about this job. I'm not going to talk about any opening jobs. That's just not what I do during the season. But what I am going to say is that we're going to continue to play to this certain standard to hold ourselves to, and blah, 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 blah. Because Minnesota, they don't care about the fact that, we're this good that I'm getting job offers or this or this or this or that, or that we're getting ranked. They don't care. What they know is that they've beaten us the last 5 years and that they own us. And they're going to come in and try to continue that dominance. And the only way we can break that dominance is if we come out and play to our standard, the type of standard that has me up for job openings like this. But instead, it came off as very egotistical. Well, hey, everywhere I've been, this is outside of Carolina. This is just how it's been everywhere I've been. Because I mean, again, hindsight, right? Of course, I can say this now because I wasn't necessarily saying this as it was going on because I was kind of more focused on trying to read between the lines and see kind of more of what's really going on. Where's his head actually at with this whole Penn State thing? And also because, like I said, the games prior, this team to me had proven to me that they are better mentally with how to deal with things. But I did mention this in the preview show, right? That the only thing that does worry me that they have to show, that they have to prove, is that any other time, as soon as we get ranked, literally we are ranked for 1 week. Because that next game, we come out and we shit the bed. And boy, we left a massive dump on our bed this week. I mean, just terrible. And it didn't help. So, like, watching this game, one of the things I didn't even know until the end of the game whenever I'm watching, like, a post-game show, like the Husker Online post-game live show or something like that. I didn't know Rocco Spindler was out of the game. I started noticing, like, midway through the game that Tyler Kanak was in. But I never noticed that Rocco apparently got hurt his hand in like the first series of the game or second series of the game. But like the telecast, the broadcast, because I'm sorry, but this year, outside of maybe Fox, like the big noon actual game, everything else Fox has done this year has been garbage. The quality of the broadcast has been terrible. And I don't know if we're just if our game just keeps getting just the worst of the worst as far as broadcasters go. But oh my gosh, Tim Brando in this game made his last game that he did for us look like he knew, like he actually did his homework last game, of that Michigan State game. He was terrible. They showed up, the whole graphic of whenever the starting quarterback comes out, Dylan Wright, but it's a picture of Luke Lindenmeyer. And then they did the whole thing of like, this would be the first time, or they're trying to win back-to-back road games for the first time since 2006, back whenever Bo Pelini was the head coach. What? Like, that's not even that long ago. And you still got that information wrong. And then on top of that, then he came back and tried to correct it and goes, oh, I'm sorry. I said it was Bo Pelini. I was wrong. That's whenever Brian Callahan was the head coach. Wrong again. Like, they were wrong so much. And then it annoys me. And then just the way that they talk about the game and go off and then whatever. But the fact that they didn't point that out, like, oh, hey, they just lost their starting right guard, unless I just happened to be walking around. I don't think I was, unless I just happened to just absolutely miss that. But, and of course, because I'm not going to rewatch this game. That ain't happening. But so you can leave a comment telling me I'm wrong about that. But I do not remember at all them mentioning Rocco Spindler was out. So it never dawned on me to look at the offensive line to see if there's anybody new in. I didn't know. It just happened to be one of those times where, like, he got beat as Dylan's getting one of his 9 sacks, and I happened to see it was Kanak, and I'm like, okay, but there's still Gunner. Corcoran's in over here for Pritchett. Oh, okay, why is he in? So I, again, never even registered. I thought maybe they just subbed him in for a series. I didn't know. But now Rocco could, who knows how long he's going to be out. We'll find out probably tomorrow, hopefully, in Matt Rule's presser. But man, we can't afford to have him gone. And I think the way that the rest of that game went, it's pretty obvious. We cannot afford to have any of our top guys out because just no. Because like I said, against Maryland, man, Turner came in at the end for Pritchett, and I gave him his flowers. I thought he did a really good job there at the end and helped us lead down to the game winning drive, get the touchdown, all that stuff. That he came in, didn't look any different. Oh, it looked very different once he came in for Pritchett. Just terrible, awful. And then, all right, so I'm kind of on this full blown rant here, but this is kind of the nightmare game that has happened to us so often. And again, I am not saying that any of these things should play into why we lost. What I'm saying is just in a macro sense of this game, this is why this game was even so much harder to just watch and enjoy. And well, not enjoy, obviously we were losing, but like it just never this is why it feels so bad. This is why it sucks so much. This is why you get so much anger from this game. But like I said, the telecasting was sucking and the broadcasting just so hard to listen to. Then you have just bad effort. And then on top of that, the play, or not just the play calling, we'll get to play calling. The officiating in this game was mind-blowingly bad. Mind-blowingly bad. It was another one of those typical Big Ten games where the Big Ten refs seem to only catch and call shit on Nebraska. Now, I know you can go look at people go and go, well, look, actually, if you look at the penalties and the stats, it's pretty even. Get that. But there are blatant, right in front of your face holding calls on the Minnesota offensive line that will never get called. And then you have maybe somewhat questionable holdings by Nebraska that get caught every time. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of holding because those guys were just getting whipped up too much. But I'm just giving examples of just like in these we've seen these Big Ten games before happen like this whenever it comes to officiating. Okay. You know it's bad whenever an offensive lineman gets kicked out for targeting. That was the most bull call I have ever seen. And there was only maybe like, because after watching all the other reactions of all the different Husker podcasts and media personalities and journalists and all that, there was maybe like 2 people that thought it was a good call and faulted Pritchett for that. I don't. He was playing football. He went to go finish the block. He pancaked the dude, basically. Dude started getting back up. The play's still going. It's not like the whistle blew at all. So, yeah, he went right back after him and made sure he wasn't going to be able to get back up and make a play. And I guarantee you, and you've heard me come on and complain and be a Big Ten homer and hate the SEC, but I guarantee that play never gets called in the SEC because they let their guys play. But here in the Big Ten, somehow they're going to call it. And then for whatever reason, the replay people or whatever buzz down and say, hey, we should check this for targeting. And it wasn't even close to being targeting. He had his hands out first, knocked him in the back. Then, yes, maybe the helmet's touch as he was falling down all the way to the ground. That's not the definition of targeting. One, not a defensive player. Okay, he wasn't in a defensive spot. He was a player trying to get back up after getting blocked. 2, it's whenever you lead with the crown of the helmet. Okay, didn't lead with the crown of the helmet. Led with this face mask. None of that was targeting. And then anybody wants to say, well, Mike Pereira came on and pretty much said, yes, that, but, and it's not just Mike Pereira. It's all these networks started doing the old ref guys coming in and kind of giving some explanation to officiating, right? Initially, Was there, you saw it sometimes people would kind of argue and kind of go, I don't necessarily agree with that call. This is what I would have called whenever I see the blah, blah, blah. Now, all these guys are there only to do is to justify the bad call. So then fans stop getting mad and then reffing stops looking bad. That's it. They hardly ever disagree with the call that was made on the field or in the game by the officiating crew. They just try to justify it. That one that one's terrible. Kicking a guy out of the game because of that, terrible. Absolutely terrible. And then you had everybody's kind of put up the thing about the hold on the screen on Donovan Jones. That was so bad. And again, it's not in a pack of stuff, right? It's not like on the line of scrimmage in a pack. It was out on the edge, clear as day, right by the ball carrier. Right where the refs should be actually looking. In a wide open spot so nothing's blocking it. And you're not going to call that? All game long, their D-backs were absolutely mauling our wide receivers all the way down the field, even as the ball's coming in the air towards them while they're trying to catch. Nothing. But then what do we get whenever they're on their big 98-yard drive? Right? Defensive holding, defensive pass interference. Whether or not it was or it wasn't does not matter to me. What I'm talking about is being even. Because if you're not calling it on their D-backs, our D-backs now are saying, well, okay, if that's how they're going to call the game, we're going to try to get away with it too. But then you don't let us get away with it. But you are on the other side. Like, that's the officiating that I can't stand. I'm not talking about whether they were right calls or wrong calls. I'm talking about being even. As far as you're letting one team do this, then you got to let the other team do this. You got to let the game be the game. Now, again, I'm not blaming that on why we lost, but it gets even more frustrating whenever you're seeing this stuff and your team's playing like garbage. It's just, again, it's one of those just overall, we've seen this game in the Big Ten so many times where it's just like everything just is terrible. Not just the play on the field, everything. And man, it drives you nuts. It makes you feel like you're going crazy. Especially whenever you have the broadcast and guys like My Prayer coming on, basically like trying to tell you, yeah, no, you're crazy for thinking that wasn't a good call, because it was. We're going to say it was. Yep, it was a great call. Great call. Yeah, this game is so frustrating. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into the play calling. What are we doing? Emmett Johnson just came off of one of his best games ever as a Husker. Right? 176 yards, just rushing. Probably had I think he had a little over 200, both catching and rushing and receiving. Had a great game. Offensive line really showed that they can do really good run blocking. You're coming into a game, again, on short rest, where maybe things aren't going good. You got a guy coming back to his hometown. All he's talked about, all even the head coach has talked about, is him coming back to his hometown. Literally went to high school 8 miles away from the University of Minnesota, was the Minnesota Gatorade Player of the Year, and was never once even recruited by PJ Fleck. Let's open the game with 3 straight passes, everybody. Yeah. Hey, Dana, did you go watch any film about previous games against Minnesota? Have you watched any Minnesota film whatsoever? Because what they like to do is try to dominate the line of scrimmage and insert their will and be a good run team and then do play action pass off of that so they can kind of try to control the clock. You know what you shouldn't do going up against that type of offense? run a type of offense that is going to not take up any time off the clock. Because all you're doing now is compounding how much time the defense is probably going to be on the field. And then at some point, that defense, who might be playing well, will leak because they're tired because they've been on the field too damn much. So why are we coming out and throwing the football 3 times in a row to start the game? We just got them 3-and-out. Our defense did their job to start the game. They showed the dominance, got them 3-and-out. Now, in previous games, Michigan being one of them, I want to say even Maryland, we came out and ran the ball on like the very first play or the second play of the game. And Emmett usually gets like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards on that first carry. And then nothing. Emmett ended up with only 14 carries. Now he had like 68 yards, 67 yards, something like that. We'll look at the stats. But that's still pretty good for why not run? It's not like he wasn't running well. But we just ran we just never consistently ran the ball to get any kind of momentum to have it stack and stack and stack on top of each other to give more and more success for it. We just kept throwing it. And then, of course, at the end of the game, we get down. Now we kind of have to because we're running out of time. But I don't understand. 9 sacks. 9 sacks. We've got backups in. We got 2 backups in. You know what usually is a better option? Is to run the ball whenever you start having all these backups in. Much easier to run block than pass block. You're usually a good run blocker way before you are a pass blocker. Run blocker just, a lot of times it just takes just aggressiveness and go. Pass blocking takes a lot of technique and finesse. And if you're not good enough to be the starter, my guess is it's probably because you don't have the technique and finesse to be able to pass block. So let's just keep passing the ball. That makes sense. Yeah. And then on defense, I still felt like we weren't blitzing enough. We have a non-mobile quarterback finally, and it just weren't blitzing enough. That the game was just super frustrating. It just gets so frustrating whenever it feels like, I understand. I'm not some type of genius. I don't do this as a profession, right? I'm not a football coach. But whenever things just feel so obvious and it's not being done, that's where the frustration comes in whenever you're a fan. Because I do watch a lot of football. I did play football throughout high school and a little bit in college. Wasn't top tier, but a little bit. So it's not like I'm a dummy. It's not like I'm just this guy that never's been around it and I just randomly watch it. So you see what works and what doesn't work. I know I'm not in the trenches of it and knowing every little in and out of it, but I mean, come on. If I can see some of this stuff, why can't the professionals? That's what gets frustrating. And I'm not saying like we need to fire anybody, anything like that. I mean, there might need to be some serious conversations about Donovan Raiola. Because sorry, like this is year 4, and to be honest, it feels like our offensive lines regressed from last year. It just it does, especially with the sacks. And to be honest, a lot of people are like, well, but what if we, a lot of that conversation is, well, what if we do that? Then is Dylan going to transfer? I don't necessarily think so. But if he does because of that, okay, bye. This program cannot be held hostage by one player. They just can't. I don't care how good the player is. The betterment of this program has to mean more. And I'll use that to go into kind of my next thing I was going to talk about. Um, Yesterday morning, I was watching usually it's called the morning coffee show, but they did the After Nebraska football show by the I-80 Club, Josh Peterson and Jack Mitchell. And they were just kind of talking about the game, right? And going all this stuff. And, I'm still even trying to figure out kind of how I fully feel about the game and processing it. And, you know, the topic of Dylan came up. And, game after game, like I've talked about, like, and I've had these conversations with family members too, and people, and like, I usually will defend Dylan. Okay. I'm not saying he's perfect, but I will usually defend Dylan. Look, the whole people saying let's put in TJ Lateef, and I still agree with this. No, what you think a true freshman like that's going to do better with the bad offensive line? No, he's not. I understand he's more athletic. He might be able to run around a little bit more, but he's not going to be able to decipher a defense any quicker than Dylan can. Okay. There are things that Dylan still does very, very well. Taking on pressure, though, obviously, it just is not one of them. It's just not. And anyway, but like I said, the topic of Dylan came up, and Josh went on to put into words something that just really clicked with me, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, and explain almost perfectly how I feel right now about what we'll call the Dylan Raiola experience. And he said, I'm not liking it anymore. And he goes, really, if I'm being honest, I haven't liked it since the beginning. And I don't know word for word quote, full quotes. So these aren't the exact words of Josh Peterson. Okay. I'm going to paraphrase, and then I'm also going to kind of put my own little spin on it and on how I feel. And he basically was like, it's not been fun. This hasn't been fun. It's not been fun dealing with his haters and the way they attack him. It's not been fun dealing with the supporters and how he can do no wrong in dealing with them. It's not been fun watching him play football half the time. It's not been fun dealing with the way that it feels like this offense and the coaches basically are putting this program to fit him instead of have him fit into the program. It's not been fun just with a lot of things. And yeah, I totally agree with that. It's not that I don't want Dylan here, don't think he's going to be any good or anything like this. It's kind of been just not fun. It's been very exhausting, seeing all the people that still to this day still keep saying the Patrick Mahomes cosplayer, and like he can do no right with them, and just the absolute obvious, just blatant lies that they will say of like how he plays football. And then you deal with the people that are like these Dylan, the Dylan lovers, the defenders, and act like he can do no wrong. Well, and it's not his fault. Yes, it is. Like some things have been his fault. Okay. They just have. The way he does certain things on the field, and my real biggest thing right now is with these sacks, right? Because I think that is hands down the number one issue with this offense are the sacks and the pressures. And yes, offensive line, not good. Yes, there needs to be a very serious conversation at the end of the season about where you're going with the coach for that. I think there does, especially if it keeps up. Now, if all of a sudden, we come out against Northwestern, and they don't allow more than maybe 1 or 2 sacks the rest of the year or something crazy like that, sure. Okay. Keep Donovan. That now no longer becomes a discussion. The reality of that is very slim. So if he continues to allow 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks a game the rest of the year, then yes, there needs to be a conversation about Donovan Raiola and whether or not he needs to be the offensive line coach here anymore. But it's also not all on the offensive line. There are so many times where Dylan clearly holds on to the ball way too long. There are times where Dylan, and trying to escape pressure, runs right into the pressure. There are so many times where, look, as an offensive lineman, yes, you were told and taught, at least that's how I was always taught. I know other people that have taught this. I'm pretty sure this is in general the general coaching on this situation. If you're an offensive tackle and your guy starts to maybe get a step on you, that's okay. What you do now is now you got a wall and follow him and just keep pushing him upfield. Don't let him take the corner and get to the quarterback. Keep pushing up the field. So then if you have, and I saw this a couple times, we have both of our tackles, right? Both the ends, right? Getting a speed rush. They turn their guy upfield. And instead of Dylan then stepping into the pocket, he keeps dipping back and then does a spin move right into the rusher. Sack. Got to step up. Then there's times where he sees pressure coming up from, like, I'm going to say the middle, but it's going to be, more of like your 3 technique, right? On the outside edge of the guard. So it's on more of the outside part of the guard, inner part of the tackle coming in from here. And instead of then popping out, he'll step up and then boom, he's sacked. His pocket presence is just not good. It needs to get worked on big time. It gets very frustrating. And what makes it more frustrating is, and I'm just going off of what I see, obviously on TV. Who knows what the actual conversations are on the sideline, but his initial emotions and reactions whenever he gets sacked comes off very much as, damn, this offensive line. Man, this offensive line sucks. Not again. That wasn't my fault. That's how it comes off. That's how it comes off. Okay? That's all. I'm not saying that's what he's saying for sure. That's how it comes off. So I don't know how much, and I think the reason why we don't see any improvement is because that might be how he's thinking. And I have no clue if that is exactly how he's thinking or not. But the fact that this still continues to be a problem has me wondering if he believes if that is something that he believes that he needs to work on. And then sometimes I feel like maybe those hard conversations aren't being had with him from Matt Rule or Dana or Glenn Thomas about, hey, this is what you need to get better at. Hey, I don't know. But it doesn't feel like it sometimes, especially the way that they talk about him in press conferences. How he's the smartest player they've ever seen. Well, okay, if that's the case, then why aren't we seeing it play out on the field? I don't understand why we haven't seen it on the field yet. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Dog's barking. I live by a train track and the train's going by, so he's going nuts. You would think. Speaking of learning, okay? You would think the dog would be used to it by now. We've lived here for like 8 years. Okay. The trains come by like every 30, 40 minutes, basically, maybe not quite that often, but they do come by quite often. I think he'd just be used to it. It'd just be noise to him now. No. Got to go barking. But anyway, I digress. And what was I talking about now? All right, hold on. Let me get to my notes, try to get me back on track. Dealing with the pocket presence and kind of how he gets treated. I just don't know. It's going to be an interesting rest of the season. See what this offensive line does. See what the play calling, what kind of play calling gets changed. Are we going to see more rub routes? Are we going to see more play action pass? We're going to run the ball more. There are definitely things you can do, even on a play calling standpoint, to correct some of this stuff. Roll Dylan out. He can throw the ball pretty damn well on the run. He's pretty accurate. So why not do it? I don't know. And something else that they brought up that Josh and Jack kind of brought up, and some of this is just their assumption. Some of this has been because of what they've heard from people that are pretty clued into the program. And it's, Dylan is very mindful about stats and wants his stats to look a certain way. So the holding on to the football and not just throwing it away and just taking the sack is something that he would much rather do to keep his completion percentage above 70. Also the fact that he wasn't, he'll hold on to the ball because he doesn't want to throw interceptions. Now, I believe that maybe to a little bit with the whole not wanting to throw interceptions thing, but then again, he pulls off the whole throwing with the left hand out of nowhere, and then the whole as he's diving, pitched it out. Those were both, by the way, terrible decisions. Terrible decisions. Just because they worked doesn't mean they were good. That whole as he's falling flip thing, man, it was so close to. Yeah, Isaiah got there in time and caught it, but what if he didn't get there in time? Because that flip wasn't right to a wide open standing there Isaiah Hunter. He had to run up and get it. At the same time, a Minnesota player was running up to try to get it too. If he was just a step faster and he caught that, he's catching that, and that's a pick six. So that's not a good plan. That wasn't a good thing, but he's going to get rewarded because it worked. So he's going to get rewarded and praised by, what a crazy, awesome play that he made. And then he's going to think he can just keep doing that. No, bad decision. Bad quarterback decision right there. All right, well, let's kind of move on here. Kind of rattled off on that enough. All right. But yeah, so again, I don't want to take this game and let it ruin how I'm going to think it's going to go the rest of the year. And let's look. In fact, let's just go ahead. Let's look at the stats. Okay. Stats of the game. All right. Now, again, Drake Lindsay was a pretty good thrower. We held him to 153 yards passing again. So our pass defense, it's done pretty well. If you guys go back to my preview, I said, look, hey, they're not very good at running. They're not very good at passing. They're not very good at run defense. They're not very good at pass defense. They're all just kind of mid to just lower mid tier, right? But I said, this is the only guy that we have to worry about is Darius Taylor. If he is fully healthy and back, this could be his get right game, and we cannot let that happen. And look what happened. We let it be his get right game. Darius Taylor is going to be a running back in the NFL. Okay. He's one of their Mo Ibrahim's, he's one of those Minnesota running backs that have been really good. He'll probably be in the NFL. Okay. The reason why his stats hadn't looked good is because he's been dealing with injuries on and off all to begin the year. He's clearly healthy. They give the ball to him 24 times, got 148 yards. And, of course, ran off that big long one for 71 because just like in the Michigan game, Beeford Jr., Marquise had a bad run fit, missed tackle, gone. You look over here. This is the problem. This is the problem. We only ran the ball 16 times between two running backs. The backup only got the ball twice. And I get it. We didn't have a lot of plays, but that's what I was talking about. This is why you don't come. Same thing with Iowa. Iowa's the same kind of team. You know what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball, establish the line of scrimmage, and try to run as much clock and slow down the game and give you zero chances with the ball on offense. So then, whenever you do have the ball, you better be good and you better be precise and you better score because you're not going to get the ball that often. So the last thing you want to do is coming out throwing the ball and take no time off the clock and give the ball right back. Wasted possession. So instead, here we are, throwing the ball 25 times, ran the ball 16. And then, of course, 13 of them are Dylan sacks. Well, he ran the ball a couple times pretty good. So I'd have to go back. I know at least 9 of these, 13. So 4 times you ran the ball. 9 of these were sacks. So 9 of them you could even put up here. So they dropped back to pass probably what? 34 times to 16 rushes. 16 rushes. Because even these, there were never run calls. So really, you could add all those, all 13 to the 25. So 38 times drop back. 38 dropbacks to 16 runs. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. On defense, jabbing all over the place. The law firm, Watson Trent, he was all over the place. You know, Deshaun McCullough, I still think made some great plays. Yeah, you know, I am not as down on our defense after that game as I think a lot of other people. Do I think they played their best game? No. But again, it comes back to we're already on a short week. So all the factors that I mentioned, right? The short week, the long travel, probably didn't get as good a rest, couldn't get as good a recovery in. Due to all the short week and all that stuff, they probably practiced less physical to help them with recovery. So everything's all there, right? Maybe starting to think too much about themselves, getting a little too high on themselves. I don't think that was probably taken care of as it should have been throughout the week. All those things came in. And then your game plan should have been, okay, let's shorten the game because that's probably what Minnesota is going to want to do too. They're going to want to shorten the game. We're going to kind of play into that because I think that we have just as good players to do that. We're going to go in there. We're going to try to out physical because if we can do that, if we can beat them at their game plan in the first quarter and get up and score and get the lead, they're done. And we didn't do that. In fact, what Minnesota did is figured out real quick, especially after Darius Taylor had that 71-yard run. They went, same old Nebraska. Oh, we got this. Minnesota's not afraid of Nebraska. They know they own us. And then we played right into their game. We played right into their trap. You know what? I guarantee you know what Minnesota wasn't thinking we were going to do? Try to beat them at their own game. And to be honest, I think we have a team that could do that. That offensive line, one thing that they have been proving here is that they are a good offensive run blocking offensive line. And we got Emmett Johnson. Emmett Johnson's proven to be a bell cow. He's proven to be a dog. But because we got Dylan, that can't be the game plan, right? We got a 5-star quarterback, guy that's probably going to go play in the pros. So we gotta showcase Dylan. And that's part of the Dylan experience that I'm starting to get frustrated with. And it's nothing on Dylan, on the kid, right? It's just not. It's just, again, it's the experience. It's the whole thing. It's the macro of the situation. He's Dylan, the person's the micro. It's the macro of everything else that's around him. And, again, as frustrating as this game is, and as long as I could probably keep going on and on and on about the things I did not like about this game, the things that worry me about this game, because look, it's nothing new that's popped up, right? The sex thing has been a problem, especially since the Michigan game. So that's not new. We thought maybe we started getting some things under control because Maryland, who was supposed to be the best pass rushing group out of all of the teams we played this year, had 0 or 1 sack. So maybe we had some things corrected. Maybe the offensive line finally gelled after playing 2 games together and that with that lineup, Pritchett and then Gatula. Not in this game. Again, a team that is not very good at defending the pass or much of a pass rush. And we let them get 9. All right, man. Well, like I said, I'll end it with this, and it's look around college football. I've mentioned this before in a video before where, hey, look, college football is just different now, right? It's changed on a dime, and us as fans, we can't really compute that because it's so different. We're so used to college football, just kind of like just the atmosphere of it, the way things kind of go. Like we're used to just a certain way, and it's just not that anymore. This is way more closer to the NFL where it's just week to week, week to week, any given Saturday now, man. Really, and that is not just any given Saturday. You might have 1 or 2 because we have a handful of games that are ranked on ranked, or there are certain circumstances might allow an upset here or there. No, the way college football is now, it is so evened out. Outside of a couple teams, maybe it is even so much out that literally it is any given Saturday. Any team can beat any team, especially now that we're in conference. Especially now that we're in conference. Because just look around the Big Ten. I mean, Purdue ran all over Minnesota, and Minnesota squeaked out a comeback victory. And then that same Purdue team goes out to Northwestern and gets blanketed 19-0. Northwestern goes out to Penn State, beats Penn State. Penn State goes out to UCLA. UCLA, who was 0 and whatever, beats Penn State. Now UCLA's on a 3-0 run after starting 4-0 or 0-4. There is not a team in the Big Ten that couldn't beat somebody else. Now, is Purdue going to beat Ohio State at some point? Probably not. But Purdue could get some big upset wins against, a Nebraska, I think. They could beat on a bad night, could beat USC. I think they could put a good game against the Michigan. Because look, Wisconsin put up a big, tough game against Michigan. And then now has gone out and been shut out 2 weeks in a row, one by Iowa and one by Ohio State. Purdue could beat in Iowa. Northwestern could beat in Iowa. And those are supposed to be the 2 bottom feeders of the Big Ten. But you look around, like Louisville, on the same night that we lost to Minnesota, Louisville, unranked, went and beat number 2 Miami. Then all the talk leading up to that game is Miami could be the clear number 1 team. They think they were playing the best. And they lost. Right? I mean, all these top 25 teams were losing yesterday. And so this is happening. This wasn't just like a random weekend. This has been happening every weekend. So again, it doesn't excuse the play on the field, how this game went. It doesn't change how I feel about this specific game. But I do think that going forward, it's just week to week. I'm just going to now focus on Northwestern game. I'm not going to worry about, okay, if we beat Northwestern, man, that really sets up a good game. I think maybe with USC, the way I've seen them play against this team, there's none of that anymore. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to come out against us that week. And I don't know how we're going to come out against them that week. We're just going to kind of have to wing it, hope, give our little thoughts, but there's no more of this like, hey, we could win 4 out of the next 3 or win 3 out of the next 4 and this is what I think is going to happen. Cuz dude, the teams have flung all over the place. Outside of maybe Indiana, Ohio State, and kind of Oregon. Everybody else has just been like, look good one week, not look good the next. It's been all over the place. Okay. I mean, Nebraska could win every single game left on their schedule, and they could lose every single game left on their schedule. I really truly believe that because it just depends on how that team comes out week to week, and not just how our team comes out, but how our opponent comes out week to week. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting the rest of the season. I still think this team could probably win 9 games, but they're going to have to figure some stuff out. And they're going to have to really buckle down and really start becoming this team that they all kept saying that they were going to be. Because even in the couple weeks prior, we got away with a lot of things, but they need to play more like the team that we see during the comeback or during, they just need to play that all game. How they play in the first and the fourth quarters. During this game, I kept hoping, well, since we didn't just come out and blow them out in the first quarter, maybe this means it's going to be more of like a slow start, and then we just play 3 really good straight quarters, and then that just never happened. So, I don't know, man. This Northwestern team, we'll dive more into it later on in the week, but I watched the Northwestern Purdue game quite a bit. Again, their ability to run the football is going to give us problems. The way that they also will want to slow down the game will give us problems. Again, they went out to Happy Valley, beat Penn State. I don't care if they're down or not. They did go out and pick. They're not going to play afraid or without confidence in Memorial Stadium. They're just not. So, got to come out with their A game. Hopefully they have some kinks worked out and stuff like that going into that Northwestern game, but that'll be something we'll talk about later on in the preview show. But yeah, I don't know. Just, hey, no matter what happens, man, it's always going to be Go Big Red. And just like how we want the team to do after a loss like this, pick themselves up, dust themselves off, get refocused, get better. Hey, fans, we got to do the same thing. That's fine. We can be pissed off about that loss, but it's over now. Nothing we can do about it now. Let's pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and just be ready for the next game. Go be loud, go be supportive, and do our part as fans of what we can do to help this team win against Northwestern at home and keep this going. So it was a nice, fun therapy session with you guys. Go Big Red, and I will see you guys on the next episode.